Welcome to Doc NYC Spring Showcase, our mid-year celebration of documentary films and series. I'm Brandon Harrison, Senior Programmer at Doc NYC, and it's my pleasure to be speaking with writer, director, producer Galila Bekele and director, producer Armani Ortiz of Maxine'S Baby, the Tyler Perry story on Prime Video. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Great. What's up, Brandon?
Really a pleasure to talk to you guys. A really impressive undertaking that you both did making this film. So we're really excited to chat. I guess as you do in these conversations, take me back to the beginning and considering, both of you's relationship with Tyler, like when did he decide that I am now ready to tell my story and put it out in the world?
Well, it kind of started as a joke. And again, initially when I started filming him, it wasn't for the sake of making a documentary. I had sort of the privilege of having that front row seat for years. And around 2014, he became busier than ever. And naturally, as a filmer, when you see something incredible happening, you want to pick up the camera, want to document and not miss a moment. So initially, it was sort of wanting to archive what was happening, and then realize like this man is not stopping. He was on tour, acquiring an army base and turning it into a film studio, as well as he was on, producing, writing TV and film. How do you explain to anyone how that works without the visual? So just sort of continue following him. And I became a new mom, and having a newborn doesn't really give you much room to follow someone as busy as Tyler to film. So Armani and I met through a friend of both of our mutual friend, and he joined my little team, him and I. And then Tyler sort of eased into comfort. I think it's unnatural to stick a camera and follow someone. For anybody, that could be uncomfortable, even for 5 minutes. So that comfort was earned. And it just became sort of like, okay, let's see what happens. We're going to follow him and capture as much as we can.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then when we got into it, little by little, like Lila said, we were able to earn that vulnerability, earn that trust. And, we got yelled at a couple of times to get out and, all this other stuff, what I'm saying? But in the course of 10 years, you butt heads with your subject. You're not doing your job if you don't get yelled at a couple of times as a documentarian. So, it was great. And, thankfully, we're able to put this together. And now the world gets to see it and gets to see the story.
He had no idea what we were doing. We just wanted to continue filming. So not having this deadline over our head of when to stop filming, I think gave us the freedom to capture as much as we can. And as documentaries sort of like there's no cut and action. You have 18 days you film and you get nothing. And some days you film for 5 minutes and he's like, let me tell you how I feel, So had that freedom of let's capture as much as we can. And I think that was also gave him the comfort of okay, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm just going to go with the flow.
It's kind of funny you say that, just because for you, Galila, did you feel like you needed some distance, as a partner, and you guys have a child, or is it hey, that's what's helping here? And then I guess on the flip side too, Armani as well is a working relationship, and now you're doing a documentary. Did it ever feel like, hey, maybe I want to back away, as opposed to him being a little reticent?
Yeah, I think having that personal connection did help, because I think vulnerability depends on the landing pad. I think that comfort was very important, and I've learned that from my past films, where anyone that I would continue to capture, I needed to earn their sort of comfort level to open up, and that usually took really long time. So I think with him, kind of having the comfort of okay, I know this woman, and I that did help. And also, of course, Armani coming to join our team, it took a while to sort of for him to feel comfortable around Armani as well. But again, there's this unspoken energy, I think, for any human being when you do feel comfortable, it just becomes easier. And again, even knowing him, it did take a while for the onion to sort of peel slowly and get to the core.
Yeah, we had to earn that vulnerability regardless of the relationship. And I think that when, as a filmmaker, that is what you want. You don't want someone just to give you everything all at once, because then you start questioning what it is that they're giving you. And, thankfully with 10 years, like, I developed a great relationship with Tyler. He became like a father figure to me. So like, now that I do things, a bunch of stuff at the studio, like, it started with, okay, like, are you going to be a steward to my story, or do you have an agenda? And the thing that drew me into this project was Galita was like, hey, there is no agenda here other than to tell the true story of this man. And I think very rarely do you see that in entertainment nowadays. Like, everyone wants to sell something, everyone wants eyeballs, everyone wants this, but to have that type of opportunity, it didn't matter if we were doing the project for a year or it ended up being 10 years. Thankfully, she didn't tell me that in the beginning, but I think that it allowed us to actually be stewards of this amazing story.
Now you're talking about a 10-year journey, but I mean, the story of the film is a longer journey than that. And after he opened up and everything to you guys, can you just talk about the search for the archival process and what that was looking like and finding those gems? I really liked the moment of the choir. I guess that was the late 90s and he's in the choir. That was awesome. Were there gems to find? Was it a surprise? Can you walk through that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of everything, a lot of research. And also, I think when we started interviewing family members, friends, colleagues, you sort of also to get different stories that come together, right? Like, I think talking to his cousin, which is like such a gift for him to like walk us through what it was like growing up in New Orleans, and what it felt like, and also like his voice, his tone, that Southern swag, also like opened us up to a whole new portal. And the more we research, and then also like I think hopefully a lot of documentary filmmakers can relate to this. You sort of like ask for forgiveness and not ask for permission. So we went digging into studio archive.
Yes.
Going to places we're not supposed to. We were banned to enter a few places.
Yeah, we won't get into that part of it, but that was the most important part, was, getting into a little bit of trouble, finding saves that had all this, mini DV tapes, and kind of like searching through everything. And then I was like, Galila, I just found this. And she's like, bring it to me right now. I'm like, all right, fine.
Yeah, digitalizing all of that. And then also that's when we found, our milk and honey, which is Maxine. Yeah. Her voice, that footage of her talking about her baby boy, what he means to her, and like just hearing her voice was such a gift. And to have that was also what really inspired us to really deep dive into his origin. We knew that we didn't want to make a flop piece. We didn't want to make it a film about Tyler Perry, the celebrity or the accolade. It was more about the origin. Where does he come from? And why is his fan base connecting to him so dedicate with so much love and dedication? Where does that come from? So we needed to look at the origin, which meant going back to New Orleans quite often.
Can you talk about like the decision to handle Maxine? Obviously, a critical person in his life. You knew that you didn't have that core interview that you may have wanted to use. Was it all about that search for the archival? Did you what was the process in your original thought of being like, how do we include her?
No, I think that, while we started putting all these things together, it was very much like an ebb and flow. It was like, okay, where is this story taking us? Like, we didn't want to go in there and be like, well, in minute 6, this has to happen and this has to happen. To go back to that conversation when we were finding those archives, when we found those tapes of Maxine talking, we were like, the whole game has changed now. Now, like we have her voice, we found the soul of the entire film, and in essence, it's Tyler's soul. And with that, and with Maxine, we had to treat it with kid gloves, because I remember when the first and only time that we've showed Tyler, we thought about it and we were like, this is gonna be the first time he hears his mom's voice, because he didn't know we took those archives. Like, he didn't know, we didn't ask permission. It was a situation where he heard it for the first time, and he came out of the the room that he saw it, and he was like, oh, it's beautiful, thank you. And we were like, someone experiencing that for the first time, and obviously you guys see how close he is with his mother. It was something that we wanted to honor and respect, and at the same time understand what it meant to the film.
When you talk about how does he connect with his audience, I think the thing that really got to the core of that part of the story was that I'm moving from New Orleans to Atlanta, that I guess late 90s through before the film, and it blows up and whatnot. For me, like, I remember that. I remember that period. I remember my moms and my aunts and all these people being like, whoa, like, we have to, this guy, he's coming around doing this thing. It's a whole thing. How important was it to build that story? Because it's almost apocryphal. Like, I know that story, but as the audience, that you're trying to tell, they're not aware of how those things happen. It was really compelling. Can you just talk about that and your process of really building that timeline?
Yeah, and I think we were really fortunate to have, such a rich story, that migration of like New Orleans to Atlanta, and what it felt like you said, in the late 90s. As a foreigner, I wanted to do as much research as I can. How did Atlanta feel like in the 90s? This beautiful hub for African Americans to come together, professionals, and like thrive. What did that mean? And how did that add to Tyler's vision, right? I think timing has something to do with how we migrate and how we sort of see ourselves. On top of that, the hard work and the dream that went into building who he is. And also the entrepreneurship came around that time, right? Although he was sort of like living in his car and working multiple jobs, he had a vision, and he also understood what ownership meant, besides just writing the plays and sort of like creating this space to do his theater work, but that also meant him hiring actors and all of that. So we wanted to show the beginning of the hard work, and also often we forget, when we see celebrities and people who've achieved so much, people like Tyler, we don't understand that middle point. We know a little bit of the beginning. You come from nothing and you build up to being this giant. But what did that gray area in middle look like? And that really defines someone's success, right? Just of that dedication and not giving up. And I think that also tied in with him having what Melody Hobbs says beautifully, twin brain of this businessman and artist as well. And you don't find that together. And also tying his faith, like sort of like using that as a survival guide. And also like the formula he came up with, the TV shows, what that void between the late 90s and early 2000s, there was some Black TV shows in the 90s and then disappeared. And then there was a void. He was able to sort of bridge that gap. And the formula he created, which is the 1090 deal, became the formula for other shows that came after him. So that was very important for us. And we also, again, made a 5-hour film in the beginning, and then cutting it into what we have now was a lot. So the pressure of like, one, how do you paint a painter, right? How do you make a film about a filmmaker? That's already a pressure. And also, how do we condense all of this rich history of this man's life and try to do it, make it, I don't know, do it justice. So that was tough, but we didn't want to miss that point of like him migrating because of like spring break and what was happening in Atlanta. And then he became like, that city means so much to him,
Yeah.
What's in the 5-hour version? if there's any big thing or big moment or particular thing that you're like, hey, we love this. This is our brainchild that we had to leave on the cutting room floor.
Oh, Brandon, you don't want to know. No.
It's hard.
The 5 hour is basically the 2 hour, but very much more just like elaborated and a lot more like, okay, then this happened. Then I had a cheeseburger. And then, you know, like we try to get to every single little detail with things. But obviously, like also me and Galila, like the filmmakers that we are, you know, we wanted to push each other, you know, to the utmost extreme. We're like, okay, is this the whole scope? Okay, now that we have the whole scope, what can we take away? That way, you know, just because we have the 5 hours doesn't mean that we should present an audience with 5 hours. You know, we have to make it digestible for the audience. And, you know, we definitely had some battles and we're like, yo, we love this. And no, do this, take this out. So the editing room was always a little bit bloody, but it was always with the audience present in mind to make it, you know, amazing.
Yeah. And also like we wanted to make sure this documentary is like really reflected our style, you know. We wanted to also make it fun and palatable, and like we always have young people in mind of like who could see this and see themselves. So like the music choice, the way we cut and all of that, like we want like kids who are in college to like want to sit down and watch an hour and 47-minute film. And especially nowadays, everything is so short and so like instant. Like, how do we make something that's meaningful, but also like not gonna put people to sleep?
Wow. I'm really curious about this because it's done very well. The longstanding controversy about his work. What is it? Do people feel this way about it or that way about it? What were your initial plans to address that? And which I think you guys did it really well, but how important was it for you to say, like, we need to address people's says about the controversy around his work, because this is an important American story, and a bit of that tale I feel like it clouds the conversation a bit. So curious about that.
Oh, yeah, that's nicely said. I never heard anyone say like cloud the conversation. I think that, you know, I'll start off and then Galila could finish it off. We always wanted to make a film that's transparent and telling the full story of Tyler. We didn't want to go in there and say, okay, well, we want to make this fluff piece. That way everyone knows how great he is. Like what makes him so great and his art is the fact that people have a reaction to it. If you go to a museum, no matter what you look at, you know, some people might love it, some people might hate it. And to dismiss those voices, we wouldn't be doing the story justice. And so it opens it up to a bigger conversation about community, about, you know, the Black experience in America, the Black experience in entertainment. And, you know, we wanted to absolutely tell that side of the story as well.
Yeah. And I think also like we had no desire to force feed our audience any angle, you know, that meant holding space for polarity, you know, and I think it's important to create the space for people to debate and what they agree on or disagree on. And also, no one at that level will exist without any criticism, right? So, and also like as much as the research and in-depth conversation that went on in understanding why his work resonates with his fans, we also wanted to make sure like we created a space why the criticism was so heavy, you know, and why. And we learned so much. And I think you don't know what you like until you know what you don't like. So that space of like this healthy conversation of like how they view his work was important. And also, I think there is like a period in time where you refer to and see things and look back and where we are now. We can all sort of learn from each other, whether we judge something too soon or only saw it from one angle or one optics. Hopefully we did a, you know, enough job in showing the full scope, you know, the full circle.
When you hit people up and you reach out, you go to their person, their PR person, their assistant, whomever, and you say, we're doing the Tyler Perry film. What do they say? What are people's reactions? Is everyone thrilled to sit in the chair? Is there anyone that you really wanted to get and they were too busy or something, schedules conflict? Curious about that.
Well, like when we were getting ready to confirm and line up our interviews is when pandemic happened. So things went into shutdown. I think we had like 2 interviews and then the world shut down. And then it was, okay, we're back on. And then there is also safety protocol and all the testing and the distance in between. So there's quite a few people that we sort of couldn't get to because safety issue. But also, Cicely Tyson was like a dear to the story, and unfortunately, she passed before we had a chance to interview her. That's one that like really both of us wish we had a chance to do so, But it was, mostly like a very excited and open reaction, both from fans, families, and critics. So we've had good luck in that sense.
Yeah, it was dope. And we sat with every single person for like 2-3 hours. And that's why the 5-hour version of the film. But it was great, and everyone was very much open and honest, being able just to have a conversation with us. And, to do that also during the pandemic where, you have all these things that kind of like can be a block for intimacy in terms of a conversation. Thankfully, we were able to, create a safe space where, people wanted to talk.
I mean, alongside of, celebrities, whomever, business people that you interviewed, you mentioned his cousin. Great, 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 great character. Really enjoyed him. I know his aunt's there. What was it like talking to the family, not only in the interview, but like going to places and learning about the history and going to the house and that kind of stuff? Talk about that, please.
No, for sure. Like that was something that, Galil and I always knew that, we are verite filmmakers and we wanted to be up close and personal and use the camera as a vehicle for the audience to be in the room, in the car, in those situations. And, to be with Lucky, to be in NOLA, to be in, what's it called? The big thing, the parade. Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. Yes.
Being Mardi Gras and like to see like where everything happened, how we grew up, and like to hear the twang that Lucky speaks with, and it's fantastic and it's heartwarming and it fills you with spirit. And at the same time, when we went to Tyler's father's house, it was very like hopeless and despairful. And I remember calling Galila and I was like, hey, like I didn't get the interview. I wish that I did. Like he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't let us in the house. And she was like, that's the answer we got. Like that's the truth. And so, like Galila said, we wanted to give that polarity. We wanted to give the opportunity for him to tell his side of the story. But it was important to us, and like obviously it felt great to be down there. But more importantly, it allowed us a vehicle to tell the truth.
Yeah. And also like for us to understand the culture of like where he comes from. I think correct me if I'm wrong at Armani, but I think 2016 was it our first sort of trip to New Orleans, or was that our second trip? But I remember like landing and like feeling the energy of New Orleans. So we got lucky. The weather was amazing. And just walking through urban streets and like what that felt like, there is this taste, this smell, feeling colors, all of that. Unless you are there, you're not gonna do the story justice. Like we can grab, whatever footage and include in our film, but to be there as a filmmaker is to like understand where he comes from and hear the jazz music and walk through the streets and go to the home where he grew up, and what that felt like was important to us. And I think it did bring us closer to like the essence of like what it felt like back then a little bit.
Yeah. And also we had such a small footprint. It was me and G and Asante, our producer. And we're just like, all right, this is what it is. And it's been like that for 10 years. So like it informed us in the edit booth. It informed us in like how we wanted to tell the story because we were the people there. It's not like we, got a courier and the SD cards and we popped them in. It was like, no, like we were there. We know when they shied away from a certain question. We know when, their lights, got brighter when they were talking about something. So, it was important for us to be there with them.
I mean, you alluded to how important this part of the story is with Tyler's father and the abuse and the distance. How important was it for you both to show Tyler as a father? You know, albeit however much, it's very intimate. You can see that part of the film, and it's very impressive to me.
Yeah. I mean, this film is about love, really. It's about love and healing and forgiveness. And you see these three different generation of men, two men and a little boy. And, fatherhood for Tyler's experience as a child is so opposite to where he is with his own son. And it was important to capture that because although we experienced life and we had no control of it, but how we heal and decide to live is sort of our choice. Hopefully, we have the choice to do that if we're lucky. And what that healing looks like and forgiveness looks like in order to give love to those you love. So I think the part about fatherhood is a very important ingredient in showing sort of what all of that looks like in practice. And also the opposite, right? It is still a polarity of like what he's experienced and who he is now is very interesting.
Yeah, what I loved about that, and obviously I've been so fortunate enough to be in that space and to film him and his son and their family. It's been a situation where you see this big, you know, larger than life man turn into a small thing that his son can control any which way that he please, because he you notice how he just changes, like, oh, like, I didn't have this, so I'm gonna give him everything. And so he gets on the floor. He becomes not someone different, but someone different. Like, he's not Tyler Perry with his son. He's dad, and it's just something that, like, very rarely, he's a private man, but like to see that up close and to have that in the film, I think is super important.
We only have a couple minutes left, so I mean, I'll leave it on this. A two-parter, one a lot shorter than the second one. First and foremost, you mentioned about how he felt about seeing his mother in that archival footage, but what does he think of the film? And secondly, as filmmakers, where do you think this film really stands in the legacy of not only Black film history, but the history of the film industry as a whole?
And I think, to answer the first question, he didn't see it until we went to distribution. So of course we were like nervous wreck of like, is he gonna like it? Is it like, do we need to re-edit? When is it gonna happen? And Armani and I were in the back of a theater that we sort of played for him right by himself, and all emotion going through our bodies. And when it ended, we saw him emotional and looked at us and said, like, wow, that was like a deep breath moment. And we couldn't, I mean, I don't know what better way we would have that experience. And also, like, again, painting a painter, that is nerve wracking. I was nervous the whole time. And I think in conversation about this film as part of like a legacy, I do see a gap in sort of how we understand the African American contribution to the American history, whether it's through photography or film or books, literature, music. There's a gap because they weren't given opportunity to capture their life and what was happening. And again, when I said the beginning was more about, for me, capturing this man's footsteps and making great footprint in American history, was the reason why I wanted to capture what he was doing. And again, of course, who would have known it would have taken us 10 years to make this film. And I'm so glad it took us 10 years because I think we needed it that it deserved that much time and more to capture it, But hopefully this film becomes part of a university conversation when we're talking about contributions to the American history. And not only because it's an African American history, but also because it is a great American history, and hopefully this adds to the multitude of who we are as creatives, as entrepreneurs. And hopefully, and also like the multi-dimension of like what type of filmmakers we have within this existence.
Yeah, I think Galila said it all. In all honesty, I think that, the legacy of the movie in itself is not for us to decide. It's, hopefully the audience can see themselves and feel a part of it. The only thing that I'll add to it is that I'm so happy that we were able to do this while he was alive, as opposed to in hindsight, 20 years later, 40 years, hopefully 50, 100 years later. Because very rarely do you get an opportunity, especially in our community, to be like, hey, like this person sacrificed so much to make change for us. And, to have an opportunity to bring that story now and give him the flowers while he has it, and maybe educate some people that maybe did not know what he has done and what he has built and what he has gone through. I think that, it becomes a lot more of a human story than just, oh, this is just a movie about Tyler. This is about endurance, is about faith. It's about, dreaming about something bigger than yourself and uplifting others with you. And, hopefully when it comes to that in terms of the entertainment zeitgeist, I think that hopefully we can see a lot more movies like that coming forward.
Very, very, very well said. Galila Bekele, Armani Ortiz, Maxine's Baby, the Tyler Perry story. Thank you both so much for joining us and talking with me on Doc NYC Spring Showcase. Really been a pleasure.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.